We are live. This is the market update. I am your host, Bill Noble. Happy Black Monday. Normally, it's not Black Monday if Black Monday is trending on Twitter the night before. The real Black Monday was an absolute shock beyond shocks, where you had a market fall without circuit breakers, without electronic trading for retail and institutions. So that was a lot more serious. Now, that said, in 87, you did have a Federal Reserve that had interest rates way too high. The bond market was falling apart right up until stocks crashed. 10% long bond, as I remember, the night before it happened. You couldn't buy bonds the night before it happened, or the week or the month. It was just bonds were avalanching that bad. Rates were spiking. Then there was a merchandise trade number showing an imbalance with the Japanese, and then boom. Okay, so there are parallels. Okay, this market, if the rally fails, we're in this like beware the failed rally, right? I mean, I think a lot of legacy is, sold out a little bit. I think what's going on in terms of sentiment is probably extreme. But that doesn't mean that there aren't entities out there overseas in the corporate bond market that aren't going to do panic hedging on a rally. They're just like, we don't know what's going on. The uncertainty's toxic, just sell. Now, as far as Bitcoin goes, I'm completely convinced that this is the dawn of like the new era. It's the dawn of the decoupling. It's not going to decouple every day. Right? But I don't know who in God's name is selling Bitcoin at 74K. Futures traders getting liquidated. I mean, that was like Christmas down there. And if they take it down there again, it's Christmas again. Christmas and Easter. So, the need for a new monetary order, the need to dissect what these tariffs are really all about. Like, it's not about getting the stock market down. It's about getting bonds up and rates down. It's about defending the dollar as the world's reserve currency while simultaneously getting it to fall. Why do you think every time anybody has to talk about tariffs, like Howard Lutnick goes on, like, I don't know, they put him on shows to sound stupid. He's like the comic relief. I mean, when was the last time you heard like the guy in charge of a trade commission on Sunday talk shows? The guy's like a distraction. Meanwhile, the Treasury Secretary, who never talks about anything except like, bond auctions and the dollar and interest rates. Now he's a tariff spokesman on Tucker, Voice of America, intelligence community stuff. This thing about these tariffs as a negotiating tactic is propaganda, right? Yeah, I mean, countries will cut deals, but you don't wreck everything like this by holding up, Barron's, freshman economics project on a cardboard paper, without having thought it out, unless the only thing you've thought out is to get Magnificent Seven down, interest rates down, and the dollar down. Uncle Sugar has one priority. Oh, we need the trade balance to help the working man. Dude, you're going to have 20,000. That's how many factories are overseas. You're going to build 20,000 factories with the orange man and the stock market going crazy. Are you nuts? CEOs be like, yeah, we'll wait until it settles down. Yeah, we'll just wait. Yeah, okay, you'll get a good price on a Ford truck. But, this is not, it would be nice if our industrial base came back. But Uncle Sugar has got to get $9 trillion. So tariffs, panic tax hike, right? The idea, get rates down. Get rates down. Not just rates from the Fed, but rates from the bond market. The Fed doing an emergency meeting or, a meeting about the emergency, whatever that is, and that's probably a hedge fund blow up in the banking system. You liquidate everybody in crypto, right? Oh, CZ just takes everybody's chips off the table. It's like gambling. You start liquidating hedge funds and equities, they start defaulting on the loans that they use to buy NVIDIA. That's what happens. So, maybe Jerome's phone rang and is like, hey, we got a problem over here. Now, we do need an emergency bazooka rate cut, But if they do that too early, that rally is going to get sold. They're essentially admitting that there's some kind of bad problem out there, and they'd be better off letting the market price in whatever going to price in and then doing it, right? Even if they have to wait until May. If they have to wait until the May meeting, they can do 100 basis points at the May meeting. Let the market take care of it. Now, normally, you don't get a bottom in stocks on a Monday. Is this Black Monday? I don't think so. Not really. But could this be a mess into the close if this rally fails? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Right? Could this be Bitcoin only on the way up? Because once stock market stops, blowing out its diaper, once they find some sort of range or bottom, Bitcoin's going to go screaming higher. I mean, if you had a 2% allocation to Bitcoin, you're going to have a 20% allocation to Bitcoin. If you had a 5% allocation to Bitcoin, you're probably going to 25% Bitcoin in your portfolios. I mean, because people are going to be like, oh my God, I can't do this again. 60, 70% equities or 60 stocks and 40 bonds. Bonds don't move and stocks go down. Oh, I'm not doing this. How close you think that is? I'll give you a hint. Close. So you got to watch out for Bitcoin on the upside when this, equity mess stops, which could be tonight or tomorrow morning. Again, it's not Black Monday when the dimwits on crypto Twitter think it's Black Monday. Black Monday was such a shock. You had guys leaving the stock exchange. They bought a gold bar at a pawn shop, went home and sat there in the fetal position with their gold bar, thinking that this was the end. That literally felt like the end of the world. And people's levered ETH positions get liquidated. That's not the end of the world. Okay. So again, beware the failed rally, but I continue to believe the dawn of crypto is real. It's just uglier than you would have thought because, Uncle Sugar's got to borrow $9 trillion. They spent $1 trillion every 5 months last year. How do you fix that? That's what they got to fix. That's the national security issue, not their trade deficit with Vietnam. Trust me. Not their trade deficit with anybody, maybe except for the Chinese. Matter of fact, I think what the Orange Man's going to do to salvage this is back off tariffs with other people and just put the hammer down on China. That's what they should have done to begin with, because that worked last time. So, okay, beware the failed rally. Beware the V bottom in crypto, because normally equities make rounded tops and V bottoms. If equities make a V bottom, Bitcoin is just going to scream. And so is MicroStrategy. I mean, MicroStrategy down 10% is like short sellers trying to push their position. Good luck with that. They got smoked being long NVIDIA, and then they might get smoked trying to short MicroStrategy. Looking for Bitcoin Black Monday. They're not getting it so far. They're not getting it so far, right? The failed rally probably affects equities into their close. And even if Bitcoin goes with it, as soon as equities close, Bitcoin's going back up again. We'll go through some charts. We'll try to find a bottom, right? We found something in NASDAQ. Okay, let's hope that continues. Okay, am I still on the air? All right, you want to check out the YouTube member area? Check out the YouTube member area. We did a worried versus not worried podcast the other day where we talked about how some of these AI coins have been marked down like 40, 50%. Okay, well, anyway, I don't want to go into AI. It's in the member podcast. Patreon had a Black Monday preview, and it had like a whole bunch of charts about Michael Saylor from my guys, the Spartans, in the middle tier offering. So please go check those things out. Don't forget LuxAlgo. We're going to go through LuxAlgo, NASDAQ, and S&P today. Those pretty much are the charts, right? 5-wave work, very interesting to see if you can find a bottom across the board. And I continue to believe there's going to be something to be said about Bitcoin at Bitcoin Vegas, because this market may be, it could be Bitcoin only for a period of months, right? Because everybody in legacy has to reorganize their portfolio, or they're just stupid and they like losing money. It's that simple. Okay. Today's Tech Bites in the house. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Bob Marsh, a member for 6 months, along with today's Tech Bites. Yo Lopez, right? The sounds of cannons. Art, Yoppy, the water guy. Alexandra in the house. Felix, Daniel J. Grandpa Keeter, forget about it. Grandpa Keeter, a member. Mams, Patriot Caveman, Baby Whale, Renee, Huckleberry Native, the OGs. A1, the Don, Caminea, a member, welcome. Huckleberry, right? Joe Hackman, welcome. Give me some hope on anti. Dude, all antivirus has got to do is survive. But it was Black Monday in antivirus, Black Sunday. Oh, come on, man. Cross-chain mixer, decentralized cross-chain mixer out. And somebody threw in the towel with Janice potentially speaking at Bitcoin Vegas. God almighty. What are we doing? Tussle, Real Mike, Joe Hackman, what's up? Cosmic Contrarian, a new member. Mr. Podlucky, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Okay, news. The market's down. Now on to TA. No, just kidding. Just on CoinDesk TV for this. Like, hey, you want to hear any 1987 stories? She's like, oh, yeah, tell me the 1987 stories. We'll go into that. Okay, now, believe it or not, this whole debacle started last night when, I don't know, somebody fired the last 7 missiles in a certain territory at the Middle East at the country with the white and blue flag. Like, how did they get missiles into that part? I thought it was a parking lot. Well, apparently they got a whole bunch of missiles conveniently the day before a meeting with the leader of the blue and white flag country with a whole bunch of aircraft carriers in the Gulf, menacing, the country next to Iraq. So what are they doing? Well, I don't know. My opinion is we're concerned that the Iranians are going to start selling oil in the Chinese currency or in gold, not in dollars. It's not geopolitical, it's economic. Just like this whole stunt with the tariff is a bunch of hootenanny. Oh, yeah, we want to bring factories back to America. Yeah, well, who's going to bring factories back to America with the stock market going to zero? Nobody. This is about the refunding and attempting to create a bid for treasury bonds, which, oh, by the way, is backfiring. Right? As of right now, it's backfiring. Right? They're not getting the drop in rates that they would want. They're not getting it. That's because, the integrity of Uncle Sugar, the integrity of the dollar, right? The destabilizing, factors created by Barron's economics project, the cardboard, whatever. That's not how you get factories built in the country. It's just not. Now, Arthur Hayes says U.S. Treasuries and to a lesser extent stocks as the global reserve asset, right? It's the end of that. Basically, if no one wants treasuries and no one wants stocks, there's a lower demand for dollars and the dollar drops hard and Bitcoin goes up, right? Federal debt, total public debt, banana. And then eventually Bitcoin goes banana. Now, May, at the end of the year, December, it's going to happen. It's essentially a new monetary order. We just admitted that the emperor has no clothes. It's a tax hike. It's a panic tax hike, period. Arthur Hayes is saying it pretty much. It's a little bit more intellectually sophisticated. Other guys are going, the Magnificent Seven is done. Of course it's done, right? And then Bitcoin is the only answer. Bitcoin is the only software you can't replicate with a chatbot. And MicroStrategy is the only company that owns, as much Bitcoin as you can get your hands on. And of course, we have a bottoming signal in Bitcoin because I have 3 news articles about Michael Saylor being irresponsible. Uncle Sugar is the one who's been being irresponsible, and the orange man inherited that mess and he's got to do something about it without saying we're doing something about it. You can imagine what this market would look like if you said we had to do a panic tax increase because we can't refund the government. Oh, I think you got problems now. Okay, so legacy guys, When you have fiscal problems, like you can't fund the government, and then you have a recession, people dump your bonds. You don't get lower rates if you have both problems. People go, see ya, I'm out. That's at least the way it works in an emerging market country. So if you've ever heard anybody call us a banana republic, we do have banana republic debt problems. Again, how are you going to trade Bitcoin? How are you going to trade AI? When Besant wants massive proliferation of stablecoins, where are those stablecoins going to go? They can't all go into Bitcoin. A lot of them may wind up in the DeFi system. You're like, what DeFi system? And I'm like, exactly. The DeFi system that's going to get built quickly, right? He wants stablecoins now, right? They should have just been honest. They don't want the Bitcoin strategic reserve. They got Cynthia Loomis out there by herself. What they want is stablecoins because people who have stablecoins have to buy treasuries to back them, right? Now, RFK's idea of using a ton of Bitcoin to try and back certain types of treasuries, that would have been a great idea. And it still is a great idea. I mean, they don't have to pay 109, they have to pay 80. This morning they're like, oh, please take my Bitcoin to 74. I don't want it anymore. I loved it at 109, but at 74, it's radioactive. Stupid. But we will go over the charts, and it is kind of hard to find a bottom. I mean, certain things are at like tactical discount zones. We'll look at NASDAQ. Okay, so white and blue flag guy meeting with the president on tariffs. Oh, yeah, that's exactly what that's about. Oh, exactly. Tariffs. Oh, my God. Please. Europe says they're ready to negotiate on tariffs. Yeah, we'll buy treasuries if you stop hammering on us. Why didn't you just ask in the first place? The Japanese says, I'm willing to visit. He's going to get on a plane to talk to the Godfather. Now, they got their own debt problems over there. They're monetizing their debt. I don't know if they're going to monetize ours. But these countries like Japan and China, they cannot afford some sort of industrial shock. They cannot, right? These guys are teetering. I think the Chinese are in worse shape. If you're going to pick on somebody, I understand picking on the Chinese as long as they don't start a kinetic event over that, because they're in bad shape. So, maybe picking on everybody is a stealth way of picking on them. If you don't like the idea that it's a panic tax hike, I like this. President Orange Man declares national emergency to increase our competitive edge, protect our sovereignty, and strengthen our national and economic security. Could have just said, yeah, man, on Twitter. He could have just said, yeah, we got to borrow 9T. Got to borrow 9T. If you borrow 3T or 6T, that still is a T, right? I mean, I remember having to go to bed early, right? I had to go to bed early, and everybody was completely silent at the Chicago Board of Trade. All you could hear was spoons on ceramic coffee cups and plates. The day Uncle Sugar went crazy and issued 13 billion long bonds in one day. I was like, oh my God, how are we going to take down 13 billion? These broker dealers are going to rain hedges down on us in the futures pit. 13 billion. Powell stirs his coffee with 13 billion, right? He flosses with it. They got to do 9 trillion. Who's taking that down? Okay, the Orange Man says it was not his idea to wreck equities. You realize this guy took $1 million for his inauguration fund from every big tech oligarch? It just comes out and is like, yeah, sorry. We're just going to have to monkey hammer this. I mean, how did they not think when he held up Barron's economics project that this thing wasn't going to get monkey hammered? Come on. Stop it. Okay, some Wall Street traders, right, are telling the Orange Man that you can negotiate with the Chinese if you want. It's not easy. Everything is easier said than done. It's really easy to show Barron's economics project out in the Rose Garden, but then when Mr. Market gets loose, watch out. Beware the failed rally and all that stuff. People People could get silly. The good news is there's obviously a bid for Bitcoin, obviously, right? So they want to take it down again. Great. Bitcoin might not go down. Like, yeah, we're done with this. You clowns want to do this stuff in illiquid markets on Sunday nights off geopolitical issues. I mean, if there's a geopolitical issue, you don't have a repeat. You don't have a repeat of 1987. You have a repeat of 2001. Tech bust, accounting problems, and a geopolitical event in downtown Manhattan. If we're going to somehow go at it with somebody in the Middle East, that doesn't seem like a smart idea to me. Not now, anyway. Probably not at all. Okay, JPMorgan says the Fed may have to cut interest rates before the next meeting. Thank God we have investment banks to tell us these things. Dude, these guys have screwed up so epically. I mean, it was the screw up to end all screw ups. You're like, yeah, I'm adjusting my dot plots and I'm worried about transitory inflation with tariffs. Meanwhile, the orange man is like setting the TNT underneath NASDAQ and boom. Be great if you could get these guys in the same room to discuss these things. Obviously, no one's talking to Powell, probably for good reason, right? I mean, it's stupid. Like Powell wanted to make mistakes on purpose. Then he's going to come out and cut rates. If he cuts rates and it's not a bazooka, they're going to sell it in his face. They did it like an emergency cut in December of 2007, and they just sold it. Now, that's equities and legacy. Bitcoin might love that. They might love it. I'm like, oh, yeah. He's going to do 25 at every meeting for the rest of the year. He may have to do, I think he should just wait and do 75 or 100 in May and just say, okay, we've had our juice cleanse. Inflation is not 4% anymore. Carry on. That's what I think he should do. Let the market fully price it in before you come in with the rate cuts. And in the meantime, you can just keep pushing high-powered money in the system to make sure that, everybody in crypto Twitter who's a market historian doesn't get his Black Monday, prophecy fulfilled. Let me tell you something. You do not want Black Monday. You just don't. Like, even if you're short, you don't want Black Monday. Like, Black Monday in this environment could mean the market not functioning properly, because it didn't function properly in 87. It didn't, right? It didn't. Yeah. See, the orange man is trying to change the subject. Watcher Guru right now is, reporting that the orange man is trying to pivot and be like, and get after the Chinese, right? Their stock market completely collapsed last night. And the Chinese generally don't care about their stock market. They care about social stability. But if it unglues their financial system, because, the central bank has been buying stocks and real estate to try to keep, that whole thing from imploding. So if the orange man leans on them, fine. Lean on them. Because you know what? If they had the leverage on us, they would lean on us. Trust me. Okay. But, when you lean on everybody and you destabilize, it's about treasuries, dude. It's about treasuries. Everybody's going to come see the orange man. Everyone's going to buy 500 billion or 300 billion or 200 billion or whatever they can afford. Everybody will make the offering to the Godfather and those tariffs will get lifted. It's about the refunding, period. That's what it's about. Okay. Yeah, this is the extent to which this is working, that the UK Prime Minister says, I think globalism doesn't work anymore. This is the guy that's putting 30 people in jail per day for what they say on Facebook. So, he's reconsidered his position. Fine. Just buy some treasuries and we'll stop. Okay. Goldman makes recession its base case unless the orange man gets rid of the tariffs. See what I'm saying? Investment banks have to start wrapping their research around what's going on in the market. And if you look at legacy, junk bonds, corporate bonds, I mean, they're pricing in a massive recession. I mean, why wouldn't they? All this uncertainty is toxic for them. And people are overpositioned in the Magnificent Seven, and everybody was thinking everything was okay, and it's not. It's not. This is why you got to be constructive on Bitcoin. Period. 10-year yields erase entire drop is a large sovereign starting to sell. People are selling the uptick in our bonds. So the objective is to get people to buy our bonds, and people are selling them. This is called unintended consequences, right? So if nobody wants dollars, and if there's less trade and less demand for dollars, and people are selling treasuries and not buying treasuries, that's less demand for dollars. Dollars fall, treasuries, meh, stocks, meh, or down, right? I mean, you have U.S. government credibility. Yeah, that's bad for the treasury market, but what happens to like risk assets? Now, is that necessarily great for crypto? I don't know. You could have Bitcoin dominance at 75 off that. I don't want to get down on the mouth on altcoins as a whole because there are always opportunities. Please make no mistake about what happens when asset allocation and legacy does an abrupt shift towards Bitcoin. It took them 1 month to get out of the Magnificent Seven. It could take them 1 month to get fully into Bitcoin. And that's much higher prices, right? 57% chance of a recession from Polymarket. Chinese market, worst day since 2008. Cramer really, really wants Black Monday because he works for a left-wing news outlet. So funny. In the past, Marxists in general will be like, oh, the stock market's terrible. Protect the worker. Now it's the reverse. Now it's, oh, to heck with the worker and to heck with the factories. We need S&P back up at 6,000. That's the Marxists are saying it, American left. Now Cramer is like, yeah, I don't want a repeat of 87 because I remember it day by day. They thought they were stupid for liquidating after the market was already down 15%, not knowing what was coming. Nobody knew. Nobody was like, oh, Black Monday's coming right around the corner. Now, guys like Tudor Jones bet on a big crash, but nobody knew that was coming. That's why it was Black Monday. That's why I was like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. It's not the end of the world if Twitter knows about it the night before. I mean, yes, the market can go down. They can blow it out on the close if the rally fails. They can do all these things, or they can gap it down tomorrow and then reverse it up. I don't know. Cramer wants Black Monday because the news outlet that he wants Black Monday. Okay, so this is what Black Monday looked like, right? It was like down, 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 gap, right? Can you have a mess on the close? Yes. Tech stocks are at the discount zone. S&P is not. So S&P could go, another 15% lower. I'm not saying this is not possible. I would think in this environment that if that did happen, that there would be a huge wick down and then it would come back. You would have a huge puke. The only way to go down more than 10% in one day is on the close because they lift all the circuit breakers into the last hour. So if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in the last hour. So you just don't want the rally to fail. That's all. Right? You don't want the rally to fail because this was bad. This was bad. There was like mental health issues everywhere because of that. Like in the bond market, the bond market, we were twitchy about another version of 87 for 10 years after. I started in 91. You'd hear, oh my God, this could be 87 all over again. And I don't know how many bond market meetings. Okay, so key events, reciprocal tariffs, Monday. Fed meeting minutes. Can't wait to hear them talk about dot plots with the, market melting down. CPI, who cares? Initial jobless claims, Thursday, we care. Actually, the initial jobless claims numbers is actually probably one of the rare, accurate numbers that the market actually follows. Consumer sentiment, I can't believe anybody thinks that's going to be good. And if it is, it's probably old news. Gold was down and then gold came back. The Iranians bought 2 tons from China. They could start trading oil and gold. And that could trigger a geopolitical event, right? A lot of people don't understand why we removed Saddam. He was talking about selling oil in euros. It's like the worst kept secret in the world. Truflation's real U.S. inflation guide is now at 1%. So we have inflation at 1%, and Uncle Sugar has rates at 4%. It's so stupid. So stupid. Every calamity, every recession, every problem is attached to policy error. This, we have the double shot. We have Powell with his dot plots, and we have the orange man with Barron's economics project. Stupid. They're both stupid. They could have gone after China with the tariffs. They could have gotten money in that way while not appearing to go nuclear, right? And Powell has rates 200 basis points too high. Fed funds should be at 2.5%, for God's sakes. Okay. Billionaire Mark Cuban says, don't sell, it will come back. Oh, please shut up. Please shut up. I hate this. Everything's fine. Don't sell. Ignore the noise. Okay, yeah, that does work long term, but you can get smoked short term, right? And it doesn't have to come back. It doesn't. Now, Bitcoin's going to come back. Certain tech stocks may come back, but, you may rotate into other asset classes that could have multi-year uptrends, like whoever produces electricity. Okay. For real. Okay. Cathie Wood buys Coinbase on the dip. Okay. I mean, Bitcoin miners may have problems. So, not dissing Cathie one way or the other. I just think, betting on Michael Saylor would be better. Okay. Bitcoin futures liquidations, 58 million. That's actually kind of light, right? So people weren't uber leveraged in Bitcoin. Saylor, volatility of Bitcoin is a gift. That's right. You would really hate Bitcoin if it never moved. Now it gives you kind of like orderly 5 and 10% dips. Every time everybody goes Saylor's irresponsible, it goes up again. Yes, they haven't sold, but they've stopped buying, and now that's got everyone's attention. This is Ray Dalio's, like, all the empires topping around 250 years, like a 250-year cycle. US imploding with Bitcoin rising. It's not a bad graph. It's not a bad graph. It is not going to take people a long time to figure this out. It's not. It's not. Okay. Tyra Winklevoss is like, Bitcoin is starting to look less and less like a risk-on asset. We are in new territory. Okay. Really, the talk should be, it is a risk asset like utility stocks. People just want it more than they want Magnificent Seven. It's a better risk asset. It's not gold. It's not a rock, right? It carries risk. It has volatility, but it's the risk asset. It's now a grown-up risk asset. It's not for your kid in his basement. Okay. The CEO of Strategy says at an MIT conference, Bitcoin is freedom from corporations. I always say this, get outside the system, get outside the system, get outside the system, get outside the system. Okay. Willie Woo is, talking about some stuff that, has been talked about before, that the last time, ETH had no particular use case, you had Bitcoin dominance at like 85. Like, this kind of thing is scary, right? That they have that much room. I mean, they got room to go from 63 to 73, right? Because this market, once it bottoms, could just be Bitcoin only on the way up. It's been a while since we've seen Bitcoin only on the way up. That's possible. Maybe alts just sit there with stocks, right? But I mean, once they discover Bitcoin, pension funds, mutual funds, they're all going to have to, people don't realize how big these guys are. I remember back in 2000, Fidelity drove NASDAQ down 15% by making a 2% adjustment in their tech holdings. 2%. They wrecked NASDAQ 15% doing all that selling. I mean, I don't know where they're going to get the liquidity to move what they have to move. It's easier to just use what capital they have to buy Bitcoin instead of dumping the Magnificent Seven down 25%. But who knows? They may dump the Magnificent Seven down 25% to buy Bitcoin. They just keep coming back to this, right? I mean, look at ETH. Oh my God. So insane that ETH retested its 2017 high. You probably could have made a lot of money in Vegas or Polymarket betting that ETH would retrace the 2017 high at 1,400 something, 3 months after the Orange Man got inaugurated. Okay. So Charles Hodgkins you know, it's not a bad contrarian bull post to doing where, Star Trek discovers warp drive, talking about 250K Bitcoin. It's not a bad Twitter post. Some slight cringe, but that's okay. You do a slightly cringe bullish post when it's down, not when it's up. When it's down. And again, no one's talking about 250K Bitcoin. You talk about 250K Bitcoin when it's at 74. I can't get a good return in Bitcoin. Well, dude, if it goes to 250K, I think if you bought it at 74, it's like a 2.7x. That's not bad, really. CZ and Vitalik doing a presentation in a, I don't know, was that like college, junior college? Nobody wants to listen to Vitalik. Okay, you know what they say when something called the VIX curve inverts, meaning everyone's panicking in the short term, but everyone's like meh in the long term. So these red lines are when everyone panics and buys all the short-term insurance, and that's the bottom. So you either bottom because they puke it on the close, or, I don't know, you get the bottom like tomorrow. Either way, everyone's panicking in equities when the trade has most likely already largely been done. Let's hope so, right? Because if they puke it on the close, it's not going to be pretty. It's not. Okay, Ethereum back to where it was in 2017. So much for life-changing money. Goldman Sachs cuts the GDP forecast. 1 billion liquidated from crypto. European stocks have crashed. And this is the orange man's main negotiating point, right? You buy treasuries or I'll wreck your stock market. Like, I don't care about my stock market. I don't care. So if you care, come talk to me about whatever. About buying treasuries and getting the tariffs removed so I can focus on picking on China until they just crack. Because they would do the same to us, right? Hopefully we're smart enough not to have a geopolitical event. Just in case you think you don't need privacy, because last night was Black Monday and antivirus. French business leaders reject Macron's demand to divest from the U.S. So sell all your U.S. assets. Well, I'm sure you don't have to tell them to sell their Magnificent Seven stocks. But what are they going to do? They're going to sell everything? Stop it. Okay, Bitcoin hash rate, really high. No one cares, right? This used to be very powerful, and it doesn't matter until it does. Hong Kong down 13%, leaning on the Chinese. Pre-open, every tech stock down 4%, NVIDIA down 7%, Tesla down 8%, MicroStrategy down 10%. Boy, look at those short sellers leaning on that. That is good. It's just in my opinion. I told Patreon, I was like, that's going to turn out so badly for them. They're going to lean on that thing, and if it doesn't break, right? Just thought I'd post on ETH, right? As ETH holders, as comments like this are what it takes to help an asset put in a bottom. Right. I mean, all these stable coins are going to be running on DeFi networks on ETH and Solana. This whole idea that ETH has no use case, I don't know. I don't agree, but the price action is so horrible. What are you going to do? 200 million liquidated in 60 minutes when crypto went back up again. They just can't stop giving CZ their money. Standard Charter sees Bitcoin as a hedge against whatever. Like, all of the investment banks have to start tailoring their research around the price action. When a simple fact of the matter is they did a panic tax hike. They're trying to create demand for treasuries, and they're going to let stocks go down until it works. And then when that's over, everyone's going to buy Bitcoin, including them. Black Monday. 1 billion in crypto liquidations. Like I said, you don't want Black Monday. You really don't. Peter Schiff says crypto is starting to crack. Right, I know. Michael Saylor halts Bitcoin purchases. Michael Saylor about to get liquidated. Strategy treads water. Metaplanet gets smoked. They bought the high, right? But Mike bought the high in 2021. It turned out just fine, right? Saylor Strategy discloses nearly $6 billion in Q1 unrealized losses as sell-off halts buying spree, right? Michael Saylor, in the mind of the media, has to be wrong. He can't be right. Because if Saylor's right, literally all of Wall Street is stupid. Cheering for Mike. China reportedly discussing front-loading stimulus. Oh my God, the printing that's going to occur here. You know, the Fed may just have to flat out bring back QE. They may have to. Like if they hang out until this May meeting, if I was running the Fed, I would let it go until May. Let the market. The Orange Man wants to hold up Barron's science project, economics project. Terrific. Let him look at the price action, right? Have Besson and Lutnick selling that on political morning shows on Sunday. Good luck with that, right? And then you come in with the bazooka after it's over. After it's over. You come in with QE. You come in with 75 basis points. You say whatever it takes. That's when you do it. Federal agencies to report crypto holdings. I can't wait. They don't own enough. Hopefully they're in there buying it right now. They should have bought a ton of Bitcoin before they did all this. Because basically what they've done is they've ignited Bitcoin. I mean, if you had said to me, Bitcoin is going to go, they're going to blow up Legacy and launch Bitcoin into outer space. That was not on my bingo card. When the Orange Man came out and said, don't sell your Bitcoin at the crypto summit, who knew? Barron was working on the economics, the cardboard. Bitcoin mining stocks fall apart as revenue craters. Yeah, I mean, dude, we're below the cost of production and they may have tariff issues with their equipment. Painful, I swear. That hurt. Right. Orange Man says there's no inflation. Orange Man should say there's no inflation to worry about. I'm sure there's inflation, but it's old news, right? First, no one was in 2022 and 2021 when clearly the 14T that they printed for the cough, cold, and flu was creating inflation. They were like, it's transitory. Now they're like, oh my God, after 3 years, we're going to get all over this. My inflation forecast is now 4%. Base case, blah, 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 blah. Okay. You know, you must be long the Magnificent Seven. So stupid. Now, this, is there any end to this? Like I went through this whole case about Bitcoin and then we do this. When does it end? You know what I'm saying? Like, when do we stop blowing ourselves up? When? Right? Noah says, I wish I had more dry powder. Right? I think everybody thinks that. Right? Which is why if you have to move money around, just move it around. You have to stop out. I didn't want to stop out in some things. They went a lot lower. You know, you don't know where this stuff stops. You know, as much as you know what they're going to do when it does stop, you don't know where it stops because we're apparently not done being stupid. We're not done being stupid. Is there pain in the market at some point you're unwilling to tolerate? I think your question is so stupid. I don't want anything to go down, but sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something. Yeah, what? 9 trillion, not the trade deficit. Right? That's why he doesn't care. Because you're going to have a much bigger problem if they can't fund themselves. You start having failed government bond auctions, forget about it. You think this decline is nasty? Oh my God. I mean, Treasury yields are considered the risk-free rate in every finance textbook. Every legacy model works off the yield on the 10-year note. You imagine what happens if no one wants the 10-year note? You don't. You don't. I was like, oh, yeah, that's exciting. No, it's not. No, it's not. You go to the cash machine and nothing comes out. Sorry, we're closed. Okay. That's why this behavior, that's why he's talking on Air Force One. That's why he's sounding like he's dug in and all of that stuff. That's why Besant is talking about it. Since when does the Treasury Secretary talk about geopolitical issues? Okay. Consumer sentiment crumbling, right? My open letter to the president. Okay. What you've rolled out isn't detox, it's whiplash. You can't replace a fragile supply chain with chaos and call it resilience. In other words, Barron's economics project doesn't make any sense. So either they're stupid, which is not the first time this has happened in the history of governments, or it's not about tariffs. It's not. Because whatever they've done, this guy has this whole article about how stupid it is. I'm like, bro, this says, please buy our bonds. What's our number one export? Bonds. Bonds. JPMorgan's worst case scenario is 4,000 for the S&P. Be careful, homie. Be careful about declaring the worst case. Now, that is the discount zone in the S&P. And NASDAQ may have a tough time getting through its discount zone. 4,000 is a discount zone. They must watch the show. Okay. Orange Man on Truth. This, despite the fact that the biggest abuser of all, China, whose markets are crashing, just raised its tariffs by 34%. Okay. It's like they're going to get after everybody, and then they're going to get after these guys. And then who knows what they're going to do. I mean, that other guy is right. It is destabilizing, but how long is it going to take for people to figure out Bitcoin with this kind of stuff? The Iranians bought 2 tons of gold. Scary. They start transacting oil in gold. You know, you probably have a kinetic conflict over that. Federal Reserve announces emergency closed board meeting today. Let's see. What do we have? How many people we got blowing up here? Oh, gee, they're blowing up over here and they're blowing up over there. And the Fed discount window. Oh, my goodness. Look at that line. Look at that line to get an emergency loan. That line's long enough to begin with. Never mind with them nuking stocks 25%. Yeah, they got to do something. The question is, when do they do it? When do they admit that there is something wrong and that they were wrong? So they got a double whammy. Right. The second they admit that they're wrong, the Orange Man is just going to unleash on them. And Bitcoin probably smokes to the upside too. Right. I think the rally in legacy might get sold, not in Bitcoin. Okay. So if we go to, equities gymnastics, we have NASDAQ futures hitting the discount zone overnight, right? So that's interesting. We have some tactical bottoming signals in LuxAlgo, right? Before last night, you have epic give up trade down here. Everybody heaved it right into the discount zone and it bounced. That's it. S&P was the same thing. Tactics, 89-minute chart. Everyone heaves. A couple good bottoming signals. Boom. You get the squeeze. But the thing is about S&P, and I got to be honest with you. Look, I'm a constructive Bitcoin guy, but I don't have the LuxAlgo reversal signals here. I don't have it on the daily chart. LuxAlgo, the bottom of the equilibrium zone is 5,086, right? Notice how they're doing this intraday uptick, bringing it back to equilibrium. And what happens if they can't get there? Well, it's 15% down. So Black Monday was 20% down. You got to be careful of this thing on the close. I mean, or tomorrow morning. You know what I'm saying? Like, just listen. Beware of the failed rally. This is like a bear market thing. If you get a rally, you want to see this thing go, right? You want to see Bitcoin, going from 80 to 85 or 80 to 90. You want to see it rip. Okay. Anything short of this, oh, look, it's over. Oh no. Okay. The thing about S&P that scares me is that, this is what happened in 2008. Nobody knew what to sell. Nobody could sell the assets that they had. So mortgage-backed security sludge, junk bond sludge, all the sludge, nobody could sell that. There was no bid for that. None. The only thing that's liquid enough to handle whatever they got to handle is S&P futures, right? It's the liquid thing. So if everybody, and by everybody, I mean Americans, European equity holders, Asia, if they don't know what to do, and the Orange Man is going to keep this up, and they don't know how to deal with, they You can't just sit there, right? Hedging with options is too expensive. So how do you hedge? Well, you sell S&P futures. Now, there is a classic saying at Wall Street that a hedge is something that little doggies pee on, because what happens is everybody hedges when it's too late, right? They hedge when it's already down. You know, you need a hedge. You need a hedge up here, right? When this LuxAlgo buy signal only gave you this modest uptick, that was the sell, right? Or the failed rally at the 200-day moving average. Either way, this was tough though. I mean, this looked like it was going to go up. I'm not going to lie. There were a lot of good DeMark bottoming signals, but I mean, this is what we're looking at. Okay, MicroStrategy sitting on the 200-day moving average, which I think is very interesting. Okay, very interesting to me. Okay, let's go to DeMark. Now, again, the problem with DeMark, you know, like I can give you all this stuff about how people are going to allocate to Bitcoin. Jeez, where's the bottom in this stuff? Like there's no DeMark signals for a bottom. I can't find them anywhere. Like Solana, 90-minute. Okay, Solana, maybe there's support at 95. But again, you know, you have this 9. This like scares the daylights out of me, right? You have this 9 bottom. You think it's okay. And then you get this failed rally. And of course, that's just, and no one's going to want to hear this. But you know what the worst looking failed rally is XRP. Now, hopefully XRP gets its act together and just rotates back this way. But, when you get this down and then you get this, you get a rally and then it fails badly, dude, that is not good. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully that's it. I don't want to live in a world where it's just Bitcoin. They had all this stuff about American-made cryptos. Now they're trying to get 20,000 factories built over here. Meanwhile, Web3 is sitting around waiting for the orange man to just like press the launch button. Okay, ETH. No sign of a bottom. None. I mean, not none, right? I mean, it's overdone here, but I mean, you got to go to a weekly chart, right? 1450, maybe. I mean, these are nice looking bottoms, but they're bottoming signals, but you're not getting any follow through. There's no follow through. That's the problem. I mean, in some ways, it's even the problem with Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin was in a range between 78 and 89, and then it broke down, and we're seeing if it can get back inside the range. It's got to do that. Traders call it reclaim. They got to reclaim and get back inside. They got to get back inside, right? And if they don't, like people, look, if no one wants to buy Bitcoin, oh, just this is the end. I mean, again, you can sort of kind of feel it in S&P, right? Like if you look at the 89-minute chart, it's like, okay, you hit the discount zone, you rally to equilibrium, and then it starts coming off again. Right? You just don't want to see a failed rally into the close, because then it could be ugly. Right? I think if the market managed to get out of today without a failed rally, I would consider that a victory, even if it winds up down like, I don't know, 3 or 4%. I mean, if you don't take out the overnight low, I would be like, yay. Especially in stocks, right? Because who knows, they may be all sold out and short. I mean, Goldman on Zero Hedge said that, they have never seen the volume. They have never seen the short selling that they saw Friday. I mean, everybody thought it was going to collapse today. Everybody thought it was Black Monday. It's only Black Monday when the only person talking about Black Monday is like me and one other person, right? When Cramer's talking about Black Money or Black Monday's trending on Twitter, something else will happen. Something else will happen, right? I still believe crypto is the only place to trade anything positive about the future. The problem with these environments is, and this is a Tony Robbins thing, you think whatever problem that there is going to last forever because your bags are smoked, you're done, your nerves are shot, and you're like, oh my God, it's all over. Everyone's forgotten about the long-term case for everything. You know, crypto did fart coin. I'm like, all right, well, you know, I'm glad you did fart coin. I'd take anything going at this point. There has to be a way to trade AI outside legacy. No one's going to want to trade legacy anymore. The only reason anyone's going to want to trade legacy back and forth is they'll price in a recession and then they won't get one. And then they'll have to unwind all of that. So it'll get lower rates and no recession. Then it'll recover. Meanwhile, Bitcoin will just be absolutely off to the races, right? You know, again, whatever they price in is wrong. In January, they priced in, it was like euphoria, dollar was going up, Orange Man's ushering in a golden age of business. Sorry. Forgot about the 9T we had a bottom. And now it's a recession. It's over. It's a calamity. Everyone's getting laid off. It's over. You know, get out the spam. No. I mean, I don't think so. And if there is, the Fed's going to have to cut rates to zero. And I don't think it's in the Fed's interest to let this turn into a disaster at all. Okay, oil. Oil's kind of unbelievable, right? Straight down to the discount zone, 15% down. So that'll help you at the gas pump. It won't help you with your 401k, but it will help you with the gas pump. And again, most of what's really happened here is the tax on the rich. The tariffs tax the rich without having them to write a check. They just haircutted their equity portfolio. They just haircutted everything. But as you can see, bonds are down. Like TLT is down 2% today. So you have long bonds down 2%. See, we're gapping up here because we're all going to buy treasuries and then we're not. And then we're not. Right? If you look at the intraday chart, yeah, it's like they love it and then they hate it. So you have bonds down 2% and stocks down 2%. Bonds are down more than stocks. Now, bonds can be down if stocks were on their merry way to a recovery, but I'm not seeing that. Like they're selling stocks, they're selling bonds, and no one wants Bitcoin below 80. I'm telling you, they've lost credibility. Like the Orange Man went for shock value on this, and it's backfiring, right? Because it's not about the terms of trade. You know, in other words, Orange Man comes out and goes, well, you know, we got the terms of trade with everybody except China. So we're going to go out with the Chinese, and we got aircraft carriers in the Persian Gulf. I don't know, man. That doesn't smell rosy for stocks to me. Maybe. Right? But I mean, you know, what our trade deficit with Vietnam has nothing to do with the Magnificent Seven. What's got to do with the Magnificent Seven is our image, our rhetoric, and what kind of risk environment are we offering? Which is like exactly why Satoshi Nakamoto wrote the Bitcoin white paper. Okay, so let's sum this up. It's very difficult to find a bottom in crypto. It's been this way for over a week. Whereas I can sit here and go, they should be buying Bitcoin. They probably are. They're going to have to take massive amounts of money to Bitcoin. They will. They will. Right? It's going to be huge. You're going to wake up one day and be like, where did all this come from? It's going to be gigantic. And hopefully they take some of the big altcoins with it, which is why they got to get a Solana and an XRP ETF done quickly, because this ETH ETF is worthless, right? No one wants an ETF for an asset that doesn't have a value proposition anymore. Check out the YouTube member area in the link down below. Gregory is asking, could the Fed come out today? We do have a call on that. We will be covering that in tomorrow's webinar. Okay. You know, the Fed should mind its own business, because if they do anything now, they're just going to admit how much they screwed up. And if that rate move doesn't stabilize the market, then you will have black money. You will have panic at that point. because the Fed will officially be admitting what you should already know, that Barron's economics project is not what this is about at all. God forbid anybody on crypto Twitter actually figures that out. Right. So YouTube is pounding out more free memberships based on channel engagement. We don't control that. We just hit the button and YouTube just hands them out. So welcome and congratulations to all the new members. Don't forget to check out Patreon, doing a newsletter now like every 2 days. Got lots to talk about. Manage risk, know your stops. Don't underestimate the geopolitical issues. Don't be bad at risk management. And for God's sakes, don't give up on Bitcoin and anything that can be used as money, because whatever you want to say about these tariffs, whatever theory winds up being right, at the end of the day, there's a new monetary order. It started the day he held up Barron's economics project. That was it. That was the green flag for Satoshi's monetary order, the Bitcoin standard. We will see you tomorrow.